Hey guys, back for week 2. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what you're going to be doing this week. Last week you read chapters 1 and 2 of Mice and Men. I hope you liked it. I did hear some good feedback about how interesting their relationship was, and just it's been a pretty easy read just because there's a lot of dialogue. If you have any questions about what happened in chapters 1 and 2, please feel free to reach out to me. We can talk about it a little bit. But hopefully you did read that. Chapters 1 through 4 are the longest chapters, and then 5 and 6 are, of course, much shorter. You'll read those next week. So this week you're going to be reading chapters 3 and 4. So let's go ahead and go into Blackboard. Same thing like last week, except this week you're going to click on week of March 30th. So let's do that. This video that you're looking at right now will be right here, which of course you'll probably have already figured it out because you're watching it. After you've watched the video, click on the lesson. The lesson shows you the instructions. This week you will be reading chapters 3 and 4 of the novel. It is going to be a little different this week. There is no journal question, and there are no annotations. So step 1, stop, go back and watch the video. You're already doing that. Step 2, download the assignments and chapters document. Then step 3, read the chapters, no annotations this week. Step 4, complete the 5 tasks that are on that assignments sheet, okay? So let's go back real quick. You will see, of course, the assignments in chapters week 2 document. Remember, when you download that, you need to save a copy into your Google Docs. Anything you write on this document that you open will not be saved unless you save it in your Google Docs. For this document, and we'll come back to it in a minute, you will need this. We've already done this in class. It was the man versus man, man versus self, man versus nature. In this case, it's just person versus, because of course there's more than just men. So you'll need that to help you with this. So let's go look at this real quick. So here's the document. You're going to read chapters 3 and 4. That begins on page 5. You don't have to go download anything else. It's already down here on page 5, okay? So that's where the chapters start. And then complete parts 1 through 5 below using the conflict, this conflict bookmark, okay? So let's look at these. The very first thing that you're going to be doing is defining these words right here. And don't use them in a sentence, actually, sorry. You're going to explain how a character or a situation or a scene in the novel, in the chapters that you've read this week, represent what these words mean. You're going to have to really think about what those words mean and where you can find an example of them in the novel. Obviously, the word is not going to be used directly, except I do believe crestfallen is used for sure. But I don't want you to use the word in a sentence. I want you to tell me where you see these words happening in the novel. Then number 2 is literary terms. Give an example of each word from the novel. I've already defined theme for you, just in case you don't remember what theme is. It's the story, the lesson that a story is trying to teach us. But remember, it is not specific to the story. I wouldn't tell you Lenny is trying to teach us that being smart isn't always the greatest, right? For instance, that's not a theme that is specific to the story. Now, if I were to say, for example, this sentence right here, a strong mind gives a person strength to endure anything, that is a theme. That is me telling you, I learned in this novel that a strong mind gives a person strength to endure anything, and anybody in the world could say, yeah, I get that. So that's what a theme is. You have to be able to reach at least 70% of the world, and you have to make sure that it's not attacking anybody, so don't use first or second person. No I, me, we, us, our, your, you. It should always be somebody else, right? Third person only. And it should be what you've learned from the book, but that can be applied to everybody. The next thing, so of course it asks you to tell me what the theme is so far, right? So you have to think back to chapters 1 and 2. Then you're going to give an example of imagery, onomatopoeia, foreshadowing, verbal irony, and symbolism. We've done every single one of these except for verbal irony. you can go back into Google, look them up, and then find an example of them from the novel. Number 3 is where you're going to need the bookmark, that conflict bookmark. We talked about this, I believe, in January, if not early February. We talked about man versus self, man versus man, man versus nature, and things like that when we read An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. For chapters 3 and 4, you're going to find one example of each of these, from man versus self all the way down to man versus supernatural. Remember that supernatural doesn't always have to be ghosts or demons or any type of creature like that. Sometimes supernatural is just beyond our realm, things that are influencing us that we can't quite see. I remember off the top of my head what the example was that one of you had given, but it was a good one. But just remember that it's not always those supernatural, like the way we think about them in movies and the way we think about them in shows, okay? So you'll give one example for each of the chapters from the reading this week. And then finally, you'll be answering these questions. These questions are mainly from chapter 3, so you'll be able to just go back into the novel and find them. If I wanted to know what the internet had to say, I would just go to the internet and ask it. Please do your own work. Remember that any answers that you copy from the internet are still considered plagiarism and cheating. You will get a 0 for that. Please remember that these grades do count towards your pass or fail for this 9 weeks. You don't want to end up in a position where you're failing and then you end up hurting yourself for the entire year, okay? So please do your best to answer these questions on your own, not with the use of the internet. Use your brain. That's what you have one in your head for. The last 2 questions for this section are going to be paragraph responses. Each of these questions, I told you what chapter they're in. Chapter 3, explain the similarities between Candy and his dog and Lenny and George. And then chapter 4, how is the theme of loneliness developed in this chapter? Think about the characters Lenny, Crooks, Candy, and Curly's wife. Okay, so that's what you will be doing this week. These are the questions, these are the instructions. Let's go back to Blackboard real quick. Once you're done with all of that work, you will submit it under week 2 submission. Please remember, just like last week, I'm available if you need any help. If you have questions, you can send me a text message. You can send me an email. I'm available from 8 in the morning until 9 at night, Monday through Friday. And then, of course, I'm available for video conferencing on Wednesdays and Fridays. The hours are already posted on Blackboard, so just go ahead and use those so you know. I'm willing to use Skype, FaceTime, Zoom, maybe even collaborate on Blackboard depending on if it's useful for you guys to use. But I am available to help you, so feel free to ask me for anything that you might need help with, okay? So I will see all of you guys next week for sure through this video. And if you need me for anything, please just reach out, okay? I'll see you later.